The Assembly will hear a statement by His Excellency Samiuela, Akilisi, Pohiva, Prime Minister, Minister for Foreign Affairs and Trade, Minister for Education and Training of the Kingdom of Tonga. May I request protocol to escort His Excellency. I have great pleasure in welcoming the Prime Minister, Minister for Foreign Affairs and Trade, Minister for Education and Training of the Kingdom of Tonga, His Excellency Samiuela Akilisi Pohiva. I invite him to address the General Assembly.
Mr. President, at the outset, allow me to join the many heads of delegation before me in congratulating you on your election to the presidency of the General Assembly. We are particularly humbled yet proud that a son of Fiji, indeed a son of our Pacific Islands, has historically reached this milestone of being chosen by the member states of this august institution to be their president. You can expect the full cooperation and support of the delegation of the Kingdom of Tonga. May I also add my voice to the chorus of speakers in thanking your immediate predecessor, Mr. Morgan Ligatoff, for his outstanding leadership of the Assembly at the 70th session. We welcome you, your very timely, current, and relevant theme for this session. The focus of the SDG and the development agenda is to, as the theme aptly states, transform our world and to ensure that no one is left behind. And as we delve deeper into the implementation of the agenda over the next years towards 2030, this transformation of our world in line with the SDGs can only be done, as your theme states, through a universal bush. This means that all countries, all actors must work together at the national, regional, and international levels in order to successfully implement the agenda and achieve our targeted goals. An important measurement of this success is the event of a country's domestication of the lofty goals and targets that have been set. In November 2015, Tonga, with the assistance of UNDP, commenced domesticating the SDGs by aligning its national strategic development framework to it. The SDGs are now an integral part of the government's corporate planning and budgeting process. Mr. President, the health of our people is a priority for the country. Indeed, we risk the very natural resource that Tonga has to utilize to develop our country if the people are prone to the dangers of non-communicable diseases or NCDs. In recognition thereof, Tonga, in partnership with the Pacific Community and the WHO, hosted the first regional summit meeting on NCDs in June this year to highlight the rampant spread of these diseases throughout the Kingdom and the Pacific Island region, and to consider action to address regional NCD crisis. We were privileged to have a guest of honor, the UNDP Administrator Helen Clark, attend for the first time in her current role, indicating the importance placed by UNDP in partnership with Tonga and the region on this important health topic. Globally, Tonga's integrated national effort to address NCDs was exhibited as one of the 9 leading countries highlighted by the NCD Joint Programming Mission and the UN Interagency Task Force on the Prevention and Control of NDCs during a site event this week. Mr. President, related to the important issue of health is the onslaught of transnational crime on our country. With porous borders, drugs have managed to enter into the country through illicit movements of people and goods. Although very small in comparison to neighboring countries per capita-wise, the effect of drug trade on the health and well-being of our peoples, especially our youth, the future of our country, is telling. We support the regional initiatives by the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime to combat drug and precursor trafficking, among others, and organized crime in the Pacific. Mr. President, as a small island developing state, or in other words, a sea-locked developing country, our traditional and modern interest in the ocean will place the conservation and sustainable use of the ocean and its natural resources at the forefront of our interest. Tonga joins the rank of member states that argued for the importance of the ocean and seas to global sustainable development and gradually steering the debate to conclude with the 14th Sustainable Development Goal. We place great emphasis in ensuring SDG 14 is achieved through the set targets and indicators by 2030. We therefore very much look forward to the first United Nations conference in June next year on the implementation of Goal 14 as a first global measure of where we are in terms of the conservation and sustainable use of our oceans and its resources, and where we need to go to ensure all targets are achieved. We thank our friends Fiji and Sweden for paving the way towards this international conference, and you can be rest assured that Tonga will be well engaged in this process. We also commend Italy for its 10 multiply 20th initiative in line with the target 14.5 to designate 10% of our coastal waters as marine protected areas by 2020. We look forward to engaging with and supporting the work of the steering committee in this regard under the able guidance of the co-chairs, Italy and Maltese. Mr. President, Tonga continues to recognize the importance of the work of International Seabed Authority. Tonga engages in the authority's processes to ensure appropriate conservation and environmental management practices are effectively robust in terms of seabed mining. we thank member states that had supported Tonga in its election to the Authorities Council in 2014, and most recently this year to the Council Legal and Technical Commission. In reiterating our support for the good work of the Assembly, we look forward to assisting the Authority in managing the coming challenges as the onset of seabed mining in the area comes to the fore. Allow us also to congratulate the Secretary General-elect, Dr. Michael Lodge, and we look forward to his stewardship of the Authority in the coming years. Mr. President, the regulation of the exploitation of biological diversity in the area beyond national jurisdiction has yet to be realized. We thus, in line with the decision of the Pacific Island Forum leaders in 2014, strongly support the ongoing process of preparatory committee meetings, especially established under Resolution 69292 to provide recommendation at the 72nd session on a legally binding instrument on the conservation and sustainable use of marine biological diversity in areas beyond national jurisdiction. We commend the leadership of the chair of the preparatory committee, Ambassador Eden Giles of Trinidad and Tobago, and look forward to his continued stewardship and skillful guidance of the process to its finality throughout the last two preparatory committee meetings next year. Agreement recognizes the value and importance of ensuring the integrity of all ecosystems, including oceans, and the protection of the biodiversity. Partnering with friends like the International Union for the Conservation of Nature of IUCN, among others, Tonga is able to face the challenge of climate change, being fully aware that as a government it cannot face such challenge alone. One such challenge is the existential threat climate change poses to international peace and security. To ensure the issue of negative impacts of climate change is high on the agenda of the AUKUS institution, we reiterate our call for a special representative on climate and security, and for the issue to be raised by our friends in the Security Council due to its clear and unambiguous links to traditional threats to international peace and security, be it in terms of sea level rise, loss of territory, and mass migration, or in terms of any instigator of violence and abuse of peoples due to scarcity of resources. The causal link is clear. Tonga is the third most vulnerable country in the world to the adverse impacts of climate change. As a party to the UNFCCC and its subsequent protocol, Tonga affirms its ongoing commitment to complementing the objectives of this core international framework on climate change. The seriousness of the negative impacts of climate change cannot be underestimated. Its impacts threaten territorial integrity, land, water, health, infrastructure, food security, biological diversity, livelihoods, and ecosystems. Mr. President, the maintenance of international peace and security is determined not solely, but in a major way by the issue of disarmament. The proliferation of weapons in all their forms not only threatens international peace and security, but also demonstrates the sheer waste of financial resources in the investment of governments in the manufacture of trade in arms. Such finances may be better used for international sustainable development initiatives which would logically contribute to international peace and security and the betterment of lives. The spending of trillions of dollars of defense budgets to develop weapons, including nuclear weapons, at the expense of the welfare of one's people is offensive and just to say the least to the conscience of mankind. In line with this sentiment, we wish to express our concern at recent nuclear testing by the Democratic People's Republic of Korea in breach of decisions made by the United Nations in promotion of international peace and security. The negative effects of nuclear testing, which our Pacific Islands region has experienced, leads my country to believe in the need for controlled and managed use of nuclear capability and power by international standards for peaceful purposes. Tonga, on its part, is thus at the final stage of its acceptance process of the statute of the IAEA to formalize its state membership of the organization. We hope to deposit our instrument of acceptance with the U.S. State Department by the end of this month. Part of the challenge of ensuring the equitable development of all states is that there is no unfair use of economic dominance by one country over another. The matter relates directly to the right to development, an issue aptly discussed last Thursday morning. The unfair application of such dominance resulting in the suffering of innocent people based on political reasoning should not be acceptable in this day and age. We therefore join many others in congratulating the government of the United States for incrementally easing its restriction on economic activity in Cuba. Tonga has an interest in this given the welfare of its own nationals currently living and studying in Cuba, in addition to the millions of common people who just wish a chance and a right to development. We will join again the majority of states represented here this year to call on the United States for a timely lifting of its embargo on Cuba. Probably part of the challenge of ensuring the equitable world state is that there is not fair use of economic dominance over the other. The matter relates directly to the right to development, an issue aptly discussed last Thursday morning. The unfair application of such dominance resulting in the suffering of innocent people based on political reasoning should not be acceptable in this day and age. We therefore joined many others in congratulating the government of the United States for incrementally easing its restriction of economic activity in Cuba. Tonga has an interest in this, given the welfare of its own nationals currently living and studying in Cuba, in addition to the milestones of common people who just wish a chance and a right to development. We will join the majority of the states represented here this year to call on the United States for a timely lifting. Mr. President, a little closer to home, we express for the welfare of the Pacific peoples that residents and citizens in the province of Western Papua, Indonesia. Last year, on this same podium, I stood here and spoke about human rights abuses taking place in Indonesia-ruled West Papua. In the year that has passed, nothing appears to have changed in that place. I use the word appears intentionally because now we still have no way of knowing exactly what is going on in there. Probably something is definitely wrong. Nearly half a century ago, when I was a young man anymore, I had learned, as many others in the region had done, that a wrong was done to the West Papuans. I'm not a young man. I have struggled against great odds much of my life for justice and democracy in my land. In the Christian faith, an universal truism is espoused through the story of the Good Samaritan. After seeing a badly injured man stripped of his clothing, who was a victim of a robbery, lying in the sun by the road, without reservation or hesitation or consideration to religious or cultural restriction or biasness, this Samaritan's first reaction was to help the man from his suffering, to clothe him, and to nurse him to health. He took the man and put him in a local accommodation where the injured man could recover. Tonga has probably neighborly concern for the welfare of the indigenous people of West Papua, as called for by a decision of our recent meeting of the Pacific Island Forum leaders earlier this month in the Federated States of Micronesia. Tonga supports the call for an open and constructive dialogue with Indonesia regarding the status and welfare of the people of West Papua. As a concerned neighbor, Tonga also calls on Indonesia as a forum dialogue partner to work with it and other Pacific Island Forum countries to facilitate this decision of our fellow leaders, either bilaterally or through United Nations mechanisms. Finally, in reiterating our support for you and your presidency, we also would like to take this opportunity to pay tribute to the Secretary General and his tireless work for all countries and its people of the world notwithstanding. His specific initiatives, sensitivities, also to the interests of small island developing states like my own, will surely make the presence missed in the august institution. We hope that this successor will carry forward the work done by him as Secretary General for and on behalf of small island development states. We wish him well in his future endeavors. Thank you, Mr. President.
On behalf of the General Assembly, I wish to thank the Prime Minister, Minister for Foreign Affairs and Trade, Minister for Education and Training of the Kingdom of Tonga for the statement just made, and I request Protocol to escort His Excellency.